Clubhouse.
Welcome back to Escaping Gilead. This is for the third episode of the first season of The Testaments. This episode was called Daisy. This is Paul.
This is Caroline. I was really happy with this episode because I wanted to get out of Gilead and give us a breather from that, I don't know, just the oppression of it all. So I was really happy to spend some time in Daisy's world and get a chance to get some backstory on her.
What did you think about shifting to her point of view?
Totally cool with that.
Cool with that.
Yes. I was into it. I wanted to see what was going on with her. I wanted to know more about her because we have a pretty good idea of what we think is going on here, which maybe by the end of this episode we want to share. I don't know. We feel like there's going to be a reveal here. I feel like most people already know, but also I don't want to just say it in case you don't know yet.
I was thinking that this show was going to be primarily focused on Agnes because the first two episodes just stay in her head only. Mm-hmm. But then, you think back to Handmaids, and that show started in June's head and her memories. And eventually we did start to get Serena as a point of view character. And then we had little drop-ins.
Like Janine. And
where we needed to know
Aunt
what
Lydia.
Nick was doing or Aunt Lydia was doing.
And we got their backstories. We found out what was going on with them. So some of the things that we find out are we get to meet Daisy's parents, Neil and Melanie, and a boyfriend, Justin. Her parents run this secondhand shop, and we find out that Justin was actually the source of the little transistor radio that we saw in the pilot. All of that, very cool, good layering, good some character development. We're starting to understand what kind of kid she was before she was a Pearl Girl. We're trying to kind of understand her world, what was going on in Toronto. And then we have this huge happening with her parents where Neil and Melanie are killed. Now, you, having read the book, had some idea that this was coming.
Yeah, because they die in the book. They die a different way, but they basically die in the same place. In the book, they are escorted out of the store by unknown agents and placed into a car, and the car explodes. Here, it looks like there may have been a break-in or some kind of little explosion or something, because the front of the store looks wrecked, and they have the crime scene pretty wide around, it crosses the entire street there, you know, as if there's collateral damage.
Yeah, it looks like maybe a car even smashed into the front of the glass or something like that.
Maybe. But we do see Melanie there on the floor, and it appears that she has a gunshot wound to the face, a very small caliber hole, but in your face, that's good enough.
Well, and there was stuff on her chest, and you could see, and Neil had obviously a head injury as well. So both parents dead. This answers the question why earlier on Daisy said some of us don't have a world to go back to. Didn't know why she said that, didn't know what was going on in Toronto, but now we find out really it's that her family's gone. And through a series of things with Justin, basically he's not going to be Team Daisy. So the whole sneaking over there and thinking somehow she was going to convince him to run away totally fell flat. He was not for this. Did you think Justin would go along with that in any way?
No.
Well, I don't know. He kind of seemed like a bad boy, so I didn't know. And he also seemed a little older than her. So I wasn't sure.
But then, he said, you know what? Let's talk to my parents.
I know. Look at him.
That is not the bad boy.
No, it turned out he wasn't a bad boy at all.
A, no.
Right. Okay, so one of the scenes that I thought was really sad was the whole at the morgue, Daisy IDing the bodies. We're covering the Madison over on another Yellowstone channel if you guys want to go check that out. And there is a whole portion about IDing bodies and the idea that it's so archaic that that's how we still do this, that you can't just preserve the last memory that you had of that person alive and smiling at you and saying I love you or something, but instead you have to see their damaged body and have to have that visual as your last look. It seems like there should be something like fingerprinting or I don't know, some other way where victims, especially a young girl like this, wouldn't have to go and see the damage like that. Now I know she saw them through the storefront, but that was traumatic.
I wonder if IDing the body firsthand like this is more of a TV trope than it is a actual thing in real life.
I would agree with you, but I do think that the Madison, made by Taylor Sheridan, is sort of more of a stickler for facts like that. And there was such an argument of like, why do you make people do this? This is so archaic and like, this is awful. And you're like, completely messing with people who are in the middle of this traumatic situation. And so that leads me to believe that while I agree, this could just be a TV thing. I've never had to quote unquote ID a body before. So but I kind of assume that this is how it really works. Were you shocked at this concept that the social worker could possibly be like an imposter?
I wasn't sure if June was 100% correct on that,
Okay.
But, earlier today I was watching 3 Days of the Condor, and there's a lot of people in that pretend to be other people pretty convincingly. So I would be taken in by the first friendly face. Were I any of these, whether I'm Robert Redford in that story or Daisy in this one.
I mean, especially a kid. And she lost both of her parents. It doesn't seem like there's any other family that's coming to be with her or anything, because by now you think they would have called some other, family contacts or something. I thought it was kind of weird that they had her phone. Because I don't know why you would do that. I don't know why you would necessarily need to take her phone unless the police know more, or unless, as June was sort of insinuating, all of these people, like any one of them could be basically spies from Gilead, right? And that's what she was basically saying, like the social worker is going to try to get you out of here and take you off to Gilead, basically.
Maybe she was questioned, and maybe that's just police procedure, is that they
take your phone.
Even if you're not a suspect, you are a witness, and maybe that's the way they do it. I'm making
it's Canada, so
there.
I don't know the rules. It could be completely different, but I feel like it's a little bit like, unless you have a warrant, why do you get to take like my private property, right? You can't search my car. Why are you allowed to take my phone? And the implication of that is that you're searching my phone, right? It's not just that you like took it like, oh, I'll just hold it for you. We'll charge it in the back for you. Like, it's not like that. It's like, we're going through your phone messages and stuff. And it seems like you shouldn't be able to do that without some sort of warrant. Again,
you can't
just in America.
In today's world.
Right. Yeah. So unsure. June showing up like that. I mean, were you like, what the hell? Or were you like, yep, right on time?
It's a difference from the book, but it makes a lot of sense. We kind of had an offline discussion today about whether or not Elizabeth Moss would flex her producer role in inserting June into the story and how she would do it. And doing it in this way makes a lot of sense. And because that other character was just someone that hung around the family but didn't really get involved and didn't really know Daisy that well. I mean, she knew her well enough so that she could recognize her both ways.
Right.
But it wasn't like they'd ever gone to that lady's house and had ice cream or something.
I think it was important for us to actually see Elizabeth Moss and actually have it be June, because it gives it instant credibility for us as the viewer that we know that she's the real June and that she is, on the right side of the situation. If they brought in any other character, as they did in the book where it was like a different person, I feel like we would have been questioning whether or not that person was truly Mayday. Were they actually Gilead? Should we trust them? But giving us June's face explaining the story right away, we already trust her. We already feel like, why would she have any reason to lie to this girl, right?
Yeah.
So she takes her over to this motel. That whole exchange was very teenager-like with the, I just want to call my boyfriend, right?
Very.
All that stuff. Were you shocked when she's like, that part of your life is totally over? Like, did you think that she was going to have to cut off completely from that?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
I was not surprised, no. And we know that June says hard things to people that need to hear them.
She does.
Do you understand me?
Sorry for all of those who didn't turn your volume down. Okay, but like rookie move, you went to sleep, June, and you didn't like hang something like on the doorknobs, like cans or something that were gonna like jingle, or doorknob bells or something. Like, of course Daisy was gonna sneak out like 2 seconds later. That was like wild to me that whole thing happened. I did, of course, understand that she was going to run to Justin's house. It makes complete sense. She had to say goodbye, and she had to have her like sort of one last moment of normalcy. For me, that scene between her and Justin reminded me a lot of Nick and June when they were up in Nick's apartment. All that time that they spent together there, yes, there was sex and all that kind of stuff, but also there was what I would consider some amount of normalcy for June. Like they had like pillow talk, and they kind of like had like a before times interactions with each other, and I felt that vibe. I feel like they captured whatever that is when she was like, I need this sense of normalcy. I got it. I understood what they were trying to do there.
Mm-hmm. I agree with all that having some sort of booby trap for her would have made sense, but I think narratively,
just like a Mayday issued jingle bell thing you put on doors so that you know when people are coming, you know.
Yeah, well, but
Or
narratively, yeah, we needed Daisy to come face to face with the reality of her old life being over.
Yeah.
And she needed to see it with her own eyes.
I agree. Did it work for you that when she ran out of Justin's house and basically like took the corner, she just ran right into June, who was already like standing in the road?
I mean, it would seem convenient, but later in the diner, when she says, "We've always had you."
Yeah.
I think that explains it all.
Do you think there was like instantly a call like to June, like she's climbing in Justin's window right now?
I think it was maybe like she gets up to pee. Oh, the girl's gone. Well, there's probably one place where she would have went.
No, I know, but in the "we got you," like, do you think it was like there's other people, like a neighbor, like there would have been a neighbor who would have totally known that this was Daisy and this was Justin and that she's over there and all that?
Or you could say maybe the motel was a safe house run by other. They run it as a normal business, but it's also Mayday cooperative people.
That makes sense.
And they see a teenage girl running out the gate. So yeah, I'm just guessing, but yeah, the "we've always had you" line told me what I need to know and why that scene made sense.
Right. And obviously that there's like a whole web of people. Did it surprise you that there was nothing different about the way June looked? Like, given the heat that we could only imagine that Gilead has for wanting to find June and or baby Nicole, like, let's not forget about that whole portion. Was it surprising that, I mean, like, even her hairstyle was exactly the same? Like, there was literally nothing different about the way that she looked. Like, not even a baseball cap, not even like she has brown hair now. She's got long hair now. I mean, it's supposed to have been like 10 years. She has the same exact look about her. Yeah. And again, like, supposed to be sort of concerned about Gilead is obviously can get Neil and Melanie. Why can't they get June? You know, she's just standing in that store on some days.
I mean, in reality, I think she would have looked different, like, given the amount of heat on her. There's a couple things that I think maybe just production-wise, like, for one, if she had dark hair and Daisy has dark hair, then maybe there's some connection people might make too soon.
Okay.
And there is a preponderance of actors that have a signature look. And
it's the Jennifer Aniston
and
syndrome.
Really, well, it goes back further than Rachel Green, but yes. Yeah, when they are on camera,
same haircut, the same makeup.
It doesn't matter if
what character.
If, say, the friends had gone skiing and it made a lot of sense to wear a ski mask that day, they would not wear a ski mask that day. You know what I mean?
Okay.
They would have their face, their hair. Or my dad had this story about how the place he worked hired Leslie Nielsen to do a video for them. Leslie Nielsen at the time had the silver hair, you know, and that was his signature look. Where my dad worked required hard hats, and the production would not bend. So they had to film him in a spot that didn't require hard hats, which didn't include where they actually worked, just so that they could have Leslie Nielsen in their video.
Because he wasn't going to wear a hat.
Because he wasn't going to wear. Yes, exactly right.
Got you. So I wonder if this is real life infecting the situation, or is this a situation where are they kind of babying the audience a little bit and being like, hey, remember, this is June. Remember, she looks exactly the same.
I think there's some of that
as
too.
the last time you saw her. So you recognize her, right? Like that whole thing, because they, you know, until she said, I'm June. some people could have forgotten, because not everybody watches the way you and I watch, where we watch it several times and take notes and pay attention and go to the Paley Center when they're doing their Handmaids events and all that kind of stuff. Not everybody is watching like we are. So if you needed that reminder, they obviously gave you the visual. Let's get into the diner, because this was like, let's just back up the dump truck and like start piling on everything you need to know, Daisy.
Those aren't your actual parents' speech.
Whoa, that was like a little too casual for me, to be honest. Like, she's like, oh, BT dubs, Neil and Melanie? Yeah, not your parents. Like.
Good news. They were never going to be organ donors for you.
Oh my, y'all didn't have the same blood type. Not a problem.
Right.
I mean, did you think that should have been handled a little bit more like cautiously, carefully, whatnot? Or is there just like, is this one of those Gilead Handmaid's Tale world of like, we don't have time to be soft with anything. We've just got to like get through it because there's just no time for that.
Yeah, I think it's that. I think it's that the women in these shows, the protagonist women, have to be forged in fire, you know?
Yeah.
And there's no pussyfooting around it. What else stood out to you in that conversation?
To me, the whole idea that Daisy was placed with Neil and Melanie, again, this is like speaking to what we had already guessed about this character. I still don't know if we're like cool to say what we think or not. But there was they never said the name, but they were like, you're a child of Gilead and you're someone they're looking for. And they're going to keep trying to find you because they think you belong there. All of these things. I mean, I kind of feel like June should have said, and they're looking for me too. because she did say things like that. Like she said, like, I know exactly how you feel. Like basically the sentiment is like, I've been in your shoes. I understand your whole life just blowing up kind of thing. Like all of that was there in like small little phrases, but she never just said it. Like, and she isn't. I wonder if she's just not gonna say it. Like, are they gonna try to leave this a little vague for those who haven't figured this out yet, or what?
I think, like you said while we were watching, there's gonna be a dramatic reveal.
But they'll actually say, like, this is who it is.
But they're laying the clues so that it will ring true when it happens.
Okay. All right. I'll go with all of those things. I think the most surprising portion of that whole part was that June actually left her at the diner. I appreciate the comment of like, look, Mayday's got you and we've always had you. And, you know, basically someone's always watching you. Someone's always around you. You have friendly faces around you in this diner. You just don't know it. But still, there was some part of me that just felt like after she ran away at the motel, you know, given all the trauma, given everything, like I was surprised that June just left.
You could imagine like behind the scenes back at Mayday HQ, right? The rundown ski chalet or whatever it was, the end of Handmaid's Tale,
right.
That we've seen June actually do this where it's like, well, we've got this mission. We need to go extract Daisy from her current life. And someone would be like, I'm all set up to do that. And then June would be like, I'll go do that.
Okay. Okay. So you think that's what went down here?
And then she had to
scoot back to like her other plans.
That's my guess.
I think that's a pretty good, like, you know, completely fanfic concept of like that truly like maybe Moira. Maybe Moira was supposed to go do it. Maybe Luke was supposed to go do it. Maybe somebody else, Janine was supposed to go do it. I don't know. Somebody else was supposed to go do it. And then at the last second, June's like, nope, I'm doing it. And so then maybe that does make sense why she's now willing to do the handoff. Maybe she's like, I have to be the one to tell her that they're not her parents. I have to be the one. It has to be my face saying these things. You know, again, obviously for us, the audience, it was very important that it was her because it let us know that every single thing that she's saying here is credible. You don't have to wonder if she's giving the truth here. We know, we trust her. She's the safe one. So I think that totally worked. This as like half of the whole episode, maybe even more. I didn't look at the time. For me, all of it worked. I was completely into it. I loved sort of like this sort of spy aspect that like there's been this Mayday people all around you all the time. Even the Gilead side that like there's Gilead people who are also wandering around Toronto and like causing problems and wreaking havoc and stuff like that world building Oh, I loved it. It was working so well for me. And I was really glad, again, to have the reprieve from everything going on with Agnes, all the creepiness, everything that we had to endure in episodes 1 and 2. I was glad to like get away from some of that. Now, we didn't get away from all of it because we're going to head over to Gilead, but we at least could take a breath, right? And I think if we know that they dropped this as 3 episodes. And so I feel like maybe you're in episode 2 and you're like, I don't know if I can go do this again. Like we've talked to some of our other moderators who are over on our Facebook page. Come join us over there. We've got like almost like 40,000 members and we're all talking about this in a spoil-free way. So come on over and join us over there. But when I was talking to one of the moderators, like she's like, I saw episode 1 and I had to like put it down and like walk away for a minute. And like I could see people being that way about episode 2, like, okay, shoot, like this is getting deep again and like this is starting to hurt my heart. Like I'm starting to feel bad again. But episode 3 had some ability to let you take a break and get this sort of backstory and find out more about the world and what's going on outside of Gilead. And I think that was much needed if you were going to drop this as a 3 chunk the way that they are.
And it handles the backstory that the book supplies in an interesting flashback-oriented kind of way. The way that the book is told, remember I tried to describe this to you, is that there's 3 points of view in the book. However, even though that they are told intermingled amongst each other, they are not told on the same timeline.
Okay.
So you could be listening to the point of view of Aunt Lydia or one of the 2 girls. Then the next chapter could be one of the others. But what they're talking about is not happening simultaneously. It could actually be separated by years. Okay,
that makes sense.
Until it does all meet at one point at the end of the book. And that can be a little hard to follow. Got to keep up with it.
No, it's true. I mean, anytime, a lot of book club books that I read in my book club often do that. They'll switch between timelines. Oftentimes, they'll do it chapter by chapter to try to keep you, like, okay, wait, I'm like, 40 years ago. Okay, wait, now I'm in like current time or whatever to try to help the reader keep things straight because it can be hard. But it does make sense if you've got these different characters and these characters exist in each other's timelines at different points in time too. That's extra difficult to keep track of. So you appreciated that they just kind of chunked this all and was like, here's her backstory, here's what's going on, and you understand this happened before she became a Pearl Girl.
And it gives me a little bit of hope because I know that there is some other flashback stuff that they could tell or they could just omit. But I really would prefer it if they told us. Okay.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. Let's head over to Gilead. We start off with the Aunt Lydia school and they're doing, the Pearl Girls are doing this harvesting honey. I think you and I had a couple of different ideas of what was going on here. We saw the honey pot, if you will, being handed out to
Melanie at the secondhand shop.
Right. And so clearly that's like some sort of gesture of goodwill. And we talked about like what that could mean.
Such as the old adage that you attract more flies with honey. Those 2 young women that were handing over the honey, that's their assignment. Those are the missionaries. Those are the women that come back with the pearls. And in the book, they are the actual Pearl Girls. And the girls like Daisy are called Pearls. But the honey is just supposed to be like an endearing, like, reason you wouldn't chase them off, right? Because they're going to give you some of the best honey you've ever had.
Right.
And Melanie would say that. Daisy would say, why don't you chase them out? They're just zealots. And she'd be like, well, but their honey's very good.
But I thought it was really interesting. And it was a really subtle line. But Daisy said, I used to put honey in my drink and I don't anymore. And I think that was very clear. And obviously June took the drink from her when they were at the sort of hospital morgue area and like spilled it out or like took it away from her. Like there could be something in Gilead's honey, right? Like we don't know. Like yeah, these Pearl Girls are handing it out. Maybe 99.9% are great, but also you could hide something in there, right? Mm-hmm. You could do something. Also, I just used the word honeypot and I didn't exactly mean to use it, but I said it and I'm just going to read the definition for those who don't know. It's a security mechanism acting as a decoy, a fabricated system, or a site designed to look like a legitimate, valuable target to lure, trap, and study cyber attackers or intruder. So, hey, Daisy Honeypot, I think we all have figured out that you are some sort of decoy in the Pearl Girl world, that you are clearly have other motives, and now we get your whole backstory. Now, we don't know everything about her. We do know that she's been paired with Agnes, but we can see that she has her own revenge motives. Gilead killed her parents. Even if there was nothing else going on, even if there was no other connections to any other character, that would still be a pretty legitimate reason to want to infiltrate and wreak havoc on their country.
It's interesting you mentioned that she's paired with Agnes right now, because it's revealed in the little luncheon that the ants hold. That's a pretty unique deal. Apparently, Pearl Girls are not ordinarily assigned to commanders' daughters.
Right. And I totally dug that entire situation where Aunt Vidala said, like, you know, like sort of made like a snide remark, like, oh, is this like what we're going to be doing? And the other two aunts like look at each other like, like, we don't do that. We don't talk shit about Aunt Lydia. I was like, oh, okay. I can see you're sowing some seeds of like some sort of betrayal here, some sort of running back to Aunt Lydia with something where one of these aunts now have like some biz on another aunt. And, you know, that kind of talk, I mean, you know, Aunt Vidal, like, I want to call her Aunt V. Can I just call her Aunt V? I'm going to call her Aunt V. Aunt V totally, you know, like she kind of caught herself and even kind of chuckled a little to try to, I feel like, lighten the mood. But there was definitely like questioning of like, you're going to talk out loud that you disagree with something that Aunt Lydia is doing. You're about to get shame right. coming on you.
Even though the aunts all work together, there is still a hierarchy. It is the Aunt Lydia school. In the lore, Aunt Lydia didn't start out as the top aunt. And this is why I'm a little surprised about Aunt Vidala's casting. Aunt Vidala was the first one, but then somehow Aunt Lydia supersedes her.
Do you think that remains, or do you think that it's called the Aunt Lydia school, but I'm calling her Aunt V. I'm not saying her name every time. Do you think, so is this like sour grapes? Like, did she get demoted? She doesn't really seem old enough to me to be like that. Not. So I don't know. Although, again, I have to tell you, I think the casting for her is amazing because there's something about her that is like, has this undercurrent of being like potentially vicious and like a really awful person. But there's something about her face that draws me in as a viewer. I can't really explain it. I'm very into faces. I know if you guys listened to our previous podcast, I was talking about the fullness of the girls' faces. I was talking about the lack of like severe angles and certain things. There's something about her face that it can look very welcoming. Like it has that ability, but then she can just like turn on a dime and have this like suddenly like vicious face where it's like, oh my gosh. Like I think Adam Driver is kind of like that, where he can have a soft, boyish looking quality, and like in just the smallest of changes in his face, he can look like the villain of all villains. And I think that's a really remarkable thing with certain casting that you can do. And there's something about Aunt V that gives me that, like where you're like, ooh. I mean, I think Ann Dowd as Lydia also has that. She can have a really soft, sweet grandma kind of face. And she can have like a, right. You don't even imagine the torture I could do to you, and I don't have a problem with it.
Remember the ants carried around cattle prods.
Oh, I remember those teaser things. Yeah. Completely. Ooh.
Yeah.
So let's get into some violence in Gilead, because this bus ambush took me off guard. I did not realize that there was like actual infiltration going on with Mayday in Gilead in an actual violent way, not just like sort of secret spies underground getting people out in the woods kind of thing, but like true, like we know what happened in Handmaids, but I would have thought in those like intervening years that stuff would have been on lockdown in a way that like we'll never have that situation happen again. So I was surprised that this, navigator comes around and just like completely stops the bus.
We know that it's a Navigator because we drove that exact same model of Navigator. So we know exactly what that car is all about.
He kept yelling, "That's your car."
We learn later that it is a Mayday-related mission kind of gone wrong.
Well, that it was an extraction. An extraction of who? Agnes? Daisy? Some other girl? Who were we extracting?
That could be. That's when he said that, I thought, well, was it for Daisy and or Agnes?
Or a bunch of them. I mean, maybe it was an extraction, right? So maybe they were trying to take the entire bus of girls.
But then they crashed the bus and made the bus like immobile, right? That's why the girls needed to get off, because the bus was just like was a sitting duck, right?
Right.
But the guardians, or I forget if these are guardians or peacekeepers, or some of them are called angels, actually.
Oh. We don't really have the proper terms within the show yet.
Not yet. But they sniffed it out right away, and it turned into a gunfight, whatever it was.
Right.
And the bus just sort of like stumbled into it. So that's what made me think like it wasn't about the girls. It was about something else.
I don't know though, because the way the navigator came around the side and like was like, and like did stop the bus. I don't know. Did you? So
yeah,
did you? I mean, because you didn't think the navigator was Gilead, right?
No.
Right. So then if they did that around the corner of the bus, then they were clearly trying to stop the bus. The bus didn't just wander onto a scene.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you are right. It was probably about some of the girls. Mm-hmm. Maybe not even them. Maybe a different girl.
Who knows even, remember how we were talking about trauma bonding in the last one? And now this is a stretch and I admit it is, but the way that Daisy was so controlled in the situation and grabbed Agnes and was like, get down, and was like helping her. The way that Agnes later in the shop is saying thank you and obviously being grateful and all that kind of stuff, like that was another trauma bond moment that was orchestrated by Mayday in some way, right? Whether or not that was the point, I'm sure it wasn't, but it reminded me of them brushing their teeth and the whole thing of like, now we've had this incident. Now you trust me for a reason beyond, and I know it sounds so weird, like why would she trust her because of the teeth brushing? Don't get me wrong. It's like, it's just a weird, we went through something together
I pulled
at
you
the same time. But
away
in
from
the
bus,
window, yeah,
when you were looking out the window at the bullets.
Right. Now, I mean, I gotta say, from Daisy's POV, I actually expected her to have a little bit more PTSD over, the fact that like they don't know they're in a shop and with a glass front thing and everything, like kind of similar to her parents' shop. I was feeling very like, oh gosh, is she going to shut down in some way or start crying or have some sort of moment in there where those memories were going to come like washing back on her? It felt like that would have been completely reasonable. But instead, they pivot to this completely other conversation and reminded us of the teenager of it all, right? Where we're like, hey, in the middle of this completely insane bus shootout situation, did anyone get a load of that guy's abs? And specifically those hairy abs. Like, oh my gosh, that was very teenage girl, very everything. I appreciated that Daisy was sarcastic with the like, I've slept with thousands of men, but didn't leave it at that. Followed up by like, no, I just was at the beach and like everybody went to the beach and it's not weird. And let me explain. And of course, this whole group being so isolated, I'm sure they don't, we were discussing like they don't go on vacation and they don't do these things like go to the beach or whatever, even though we think they have access to shoreline and like the coast if they wanted to. But it just doesn't seem like that kind of society where anyone's like, I'm taking 2 weeks off from trying to dominate the world and I'm going to go like hit the coast. And also, I guess, just the modesty factor of everything, right? Like there's no chance. But it really highlighted that like they hadn't even seen siblings' bodies or their dad doesn't ever come downstairs, to eat breakfast with no shirt on or something like that. They've never seen anything. I think it underscored their innocence to everything, to where the idea that they're about to be married and expected to have sex with these commanders and stuff like that as their wives, it is like scary that they don't even know what an adult man's body even looks like.
Going back to that shop scene, wasn't there a flashback where June and Moira got caught up in a demonstration that was put down by gunfire?
Oh, yeah. And they ran into the coffee
in a little
shop
store that looked very similar with sort of a little bay window kind of thing.
Yeah, it was like a coffee shop kind of thing. Yeah, you're right. That's a good callback. And of course, that's very, very early on in the Handmaid's story, maybe not in the episodes wise, but when they do the flashback to like before times, they definitely were in like a coffee shop. Remember the really big windows? It was very similar to that type of look. So yeah, lots and lots of remember when, and that shop was obviously abandoned. Like there was nothing in there. So yeah, I mean, freaky. So it turns out they get to have a redo on that field trip though, which was kind of a surprise, right? Like I wasn't sure they were going to try to do that whole thing again, because then, they put them on the bus again and like, let's go do this Judd house situation. So this gives us some insight into what do the green girls become? What does wife life look like when you just graduated, if you will, from being a plum into being an actual wife?
And this speaks to that balance that we were talking about in the last episode about what the plums who are moving on to be green, what they're going to experience, what they're going to face, whether it's being disgusted or scared by the prospect of dealing with a grown man, balanced with, well, but look, you get to decorate this house however you want. And Penny, Mrs. Judd, seemed very happy to show off all the stuff that she had done to the house.
I definitely thought though, like this would come under like propaganda campaign. Like they found a girl who at least could pretend to be happy, even if she wasn't, because we have to assume on some level, all the women who are being oppressed are upset and unhappy on some level, right? We have to think that. Paula seemed that way. Serena Joy seemed that way. Naomi seemed that way. Like everybody had some level of like, I'm so sick and tired of being discounted or not. My voice doesn't matter or whatever, right? Some level of that at some point. And of course, the physical abuse and the emotional abuse and everything else that goes on with them. This felt like the propaganda tour. Like, hey, we're bringing you and we're going to show you, like almost like career day or something, like in some way of like, look what it can be like for you, And it's like, you can have this huge house. And we found a wife who is willing to like hug on you guys and be like so sweet and loving and make jokes about Michael, her husband, and all this stuff. Like the whole thing felt very like, we're not going to talk about what else happens, we are actively going to try to make you be excited about whatever aspects we possibly can. We're going to highlight that and take you on a field trip just so that you can see that like Penny's doing great. See, everybody? It would have been interesting to have Penny close the door and get a shot of Penny slipping her back down, sitting on the floor and starts crying or something like that after all the girls leave. Like, because in my brain, that's basically what happens, right? Like there's no possible way that she's like actually happy that this is her life, given all we know. Now, what did you think about Commander Judd and his drop in?
In today's world, when a man just shows up to a woman's event that he knows is happening and is just like, hey, I just want to pop in and show my face at this thing that he wasn't invited to, I think it's weird.
It's always unwelcome, at least from my POV. Like anytime that I've ever had like a group, like whether it be Bunko or book club or whatever, and it's all women, and then some husband comes down the stairs or comes home from work or whatever and doesn't just like go to the kitchen, get what they need and like scurry away, but like comes in and starts like, I don't know, like shaking hands or whatever. It's like, could you, like everyone is literally, just in case you're a man who's listening, we're all literally counting the seconds until you leave. We got together for a reason and it wasn't about you. And you coming in, like he immediately took over the conversation. Of course, I mean, he's a commander, right?
Right. They have to defer.
Yes. So everybody's going to be quiet. And he like made everybody uncomfortable immediately. Like immediately. Everybody had to stop being giggly, had to stop like asking questions that were like fun. But like instead, he starts like quizzing Daisy.
It gave Daisy a chance to say I have nothing to go back to in front of everybody.
Mm-hmm. And that's the second time at least that she said it.
And so that's probably important. So I understand the function, but the way it happens where there's this commander having to question like a 15-year-old girl or whatever she is, it seemed like putting her on. He says, well, I don't want to put you on the spot, but yes, he does.
Right.
And then he did. And
he's like standing above her and everything. That whole like power dynamic was like real obvious.
Judd's a different character in the book. I expected him to be older, which would draw an even bigger ook factor given the age of his wife. And I think that was deliberate in the book. I'm not sure why they kind of...
I mean, I think that, I mean, if she's supposed to be like, let's just guess 17, I'm feeling like, Michael looked like he was about 40. So, I mean, there's still a pretty big ick factor there. I mean, I understand he's not 80, and I understand that in the book he's much, much older, or at least in your imagination he's much, much older. But I mean, enough ick factor for me. Like, I was pretty like, oh, God. Not that I expect. Here's the deal. I mean, it seems like you have to rise up the ranks for the most part in some form or fashion to actually be like a marrying commander. So that would have to take some time, I think. Like, we haven't seen commanders who are like super young. Like, we haven't seen, maybe Nick would have been like the youngest, but even still, like, he seemed on par with June, maybe a little younger than her, but not that much younger than her, because all the young men who would be actually of like their peers are like guardians or like helper guys or whatever. And I know they haven't shown us like what is going on with the teenage boys who grew up in a commander's house, or does that even happen? Like, because I don't even know. Like, we've seen girls be brought into homes with a commander and a wife and get raised, and then they're going to head off, right? But we haven't seen boys. Like, where do they go? Or do they just, when they're, if you give birth to a boy, do they automatically go to guardian school or some other commander school or some other place where they don't grow up in the home?
All good questions, and none of the source material answers any of that.
Oh, shoot. Okay. So I'm confused. Do you think that you go from, I mean, we know what happened with Nick, but he seemed like he was an unusual case. Like, it seemed like mostly, say, let's take one of the commanders, like that Serena Joy was with near to the end in New Bethlehem, right? Mm-hmm. Josh Charles, right? That was the actor. Remembering him, like, his dad was a commander. So then he was a commander. And same with the grossest dude that we all hated. That was with Janine. Him too. Like, his dad, like, because he was very like, my dad this and my father this and all these stuff. So there was like this sense of like, well, where were those boys? Is there a boys' school, like a commander school or something that they're all attending, or like what went on? And I know in Handmaids, the society as a whole was much younger. So it's not like they had years and years and years and years and years and years to create the infrastructure to have like a boys boarding school and all this stuff. Like, I don't know. What do you think is going on with them? Like, because the teenage boys we see are guardians or something like that.
The first batch of commanders were the religious zealots that took over America, right? But then they needed to have more commanders because they purged so many that they needed people to make decisions. Like that guardian, the Mayday plant, he's a pretty young guy. Or like the guardian that was at the final scene with Aunt Lydia in The Handmaid's Tale, that she said to let the handmaids go. Like she put his rifle down. That he was big, but he was a young guy.
16 or 17 is all I was getting.
Yes.
Most of these guys seem like 16 or 17 years old. But isn't it like the Sons of Jacob business, like how they got Nick in the first place?
Nick was someone's driver who became an eye, and that was sort of like his internship.
But like in the before times, he was like a young guy who was like almost like somebody who would be recruited into the army or something, but was instead recruited into the Sons of Jacob, right?
Yeah.
So, but still at that 16, 17, like, I don't know what to do with my life. I don't have a job. I can't go to school. I don't have anything going on with myself. Sort of that boy, right? Mm-hmm. And so like that age, but you're right. There was like a rising through the ranks for Nick. Totally. You can go back to that. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. But because I was trying to get back to, it makes sense that there is some way to cultivate the leaders of tomorrow and focus what it is that they are taught. Because they need to know how to make decisions. They need to know about different fields of study, I'm sure.
Well, you would think that they would have like almost like military strategy classes, because remember they had to read those big maps, and they were actually planning battles and doing stuff like that. Like there was actually like warfare they were needing to understand. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you think of the Guardians as like soldiers, like foot soldiers kind of people, right? Then are they raising the commander's kids who are like more like you're being raised to be generals from the go? Like I think that's right. You're not starting off as a private in the army. Like you're starting off as an officer. Remember those guys all drinking bourbon and stuff and like sitting around and smoking and stuff? Those guys never got their hands dirty. There wasn't a day in their life where they were out there digging a ditch or doing whatever. Like that was not their lot in life.
I think you're right. If you're a son of a commander, I think you're handed a golden ticket. I bet you can lose it. I bet through, mischief or
Oh, sure,
misadventure or
sure.
something, they'll just be like, we're not going to kill you, but you don't get to be a commander.
Right. But also, I'm not so sure that you can, like, I know Nick seemed like an unusual case that he actually rose to be a commander from starting off from a driver. Like, that was very unusual that he actually did that. And there was a lot of guys, if you remember, would give him a lot of side eye about that. Like, if we're going with this as like a classism thing, right? Like, you weren't born into the wealthy commander life. You started off as like lower working class. So what is going on? I don't know. I guess I don't know if we're going to get a chance to see that, because this really isn't about the boys of Gilead. This is about the girls. Yeah. And so maybe we don't even need to put so much effort into figuring out what's going on with them. I just wonder where they are in terms of, like, obviously these teenagers are being kept away from one another in a lot of ways. So do they not exist? Are they not there? Are they not physically even in the city? Or are they being put to work somewhere else? Or are they at their own school? I guess it's left to our imagination in that regard.
I think so. My imagination thinks that it's a very focused kind of schooling. It's not like high school in America now, where a kid will have to pick up chemistry and physics and biology and calculus and English and all. I think it's going to be, like you said, some military, maybe some economics.
Like things that you would be like, I'm like thinking like, and I have no basis in this, you guys, but like what I assume like boarding school is like, if you went to like military boarding school,
right,
like they're going to teach you like war strategies, and they're going to teach you leadership qualities, and they're going to teach you, you're right, economics makes a lot of sense. That's definitely like Commander Lawrencey,
yeah,
right? Like because they have to run the country. Like we need different people who understand how to do different parts, and including like trade and negotiations and dealing with other countries. Like that was like a whole part of Handmaids that, while it might have been small and quiet for the most part compared to the huge violent moments, like there was that element of like, there was like diplomacy, they had to figure out how to create sympathy for their country, or how they like did like the funeral, and they decided to televise it, and how to create the propaganda of it all. Like that takes a machine of people, to like actually churn that out regularly. I don't know. I have questions about that. I love the world building. I love what they're doing. But we got to get to the part where they're leaving the Judd's house. And obviously we have Daisy like running over to the Guardian and being like, what the frick, blah, blah, blah.
That's a great scene.
Yes.
Really
like
opened up the show, right?
Yes. It did feel like that. Didn't it feel like someone threw the doors open? Like,
yeah.
Oh, right. Like there is a much bigger mission. She isn't just like hiding crap in the bed. And she did manage to hand over her hand-drawn map.
Yeah.
So that felt like success.
Right.
Which meant that girl didn't rat her out or whatever was going on. She didn't say, why are you jiggling my bed? Like, all that stuff, right?
True.
That's all good. So did it work for you in terms of like, I know it worked for both of us in terms of like, oh, this is exciting and this is great. Did it work for you in terms of like reality? Like, could she have been the first one out of that house with no ant on her tail, with like 3 to 5 minutes of conversation with that boy before anybody else is like trotting out behind her? Like, is that reasonable that a pro girl could like get that far away from the group and whatever? Or maybe I'm just being picky about it, but I felt like there should have been more of an effort to have to do the sneaking, because the sneaking is part of it, right? And if she just gets to be the first one on the bus, and so then she has like free time to chit chat with the dude, that feels a little like, what? It seems like there'd be an ant in the front of the line and an ant in the back of the line, and we all troop out together, especially given that last week we all got shot at. So we're not just going to straggle out there one at a time.
Well, the trip had Aunt Vidala, and I didn't notice any other ants. I think you're right that she would have a short leash. But if you noticed, like when she joined the bus line for the first trip that didn't work out, she was a pretty unpopular addition to the group. They kind of gave her the, oh, you're here kind of attitude.
But you get why, right? Because this was like a sneak peek into like the wives' world, right? Like this was a behind the scenes VIP tour of what your life is going to look like next. So what does Pearl Girl get to come along for? Like she hasn't done what we've all done. She hasn't gone through the schooling like we've all gone through the schooling. She is like a weird hanger on, right?
Well, and there was that line that one of the aunts said that most of them are going to become Econo wives anyway.
I know. Wicked, right?
Yeah.
Wait, well, the Pearl Girls becoming an iconic wife, right? Yeah. Like, whoa. So again, very unusual that they would allow her to be a part of that. Again, I'm looking at you, Aunt Lydia, looking at you with my peeper eyes, wondering why you're allowing Pearl Girl Daisy to hang out so much with these plums. Very, very sus. I'm keeping my eyes on you. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a couple questions just to sort of wrap up this episode. Do you think that June should have told Daisy more or less? In the whole thing, like we've got the whole flashback, everything. Do you think that was like all this chick could handle in one conversation? Or do you think she should have been more like forthright? Like, I do know who your parents are. Do you want to know their names?
In the natural flow, were you, teenage Caroline, I believe that you would have had enough snap. If someone said, those two aren't your parents, you wouldn't have been like, yes, they are. You might have gone through that part, but you would have followed it up with, well, then who is?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it does feel like there's a dramatic build here. You know, it's like one of those TV things where they don't say everything that they could in the scene to make the scene like make sense for reality, but they need to draw out the drama of it.
But if you think about it, the way that they're dropping the episodes, doesn't it make sense? It makes sense because like they're kind of leaving you a little cliffhangery for episode 3, and that's pretty much the point of trying to hook you for the entire season, right? Mm-hmm. Is like we want you to wonder who are her parents. We want you to wonder who she is and why was she placed with Neil and Melanie and what else is going on here. What other backstory did June have that she did withhold? So I get it. I get for the whole drama of it all. Like I completely understand. From the reality point of view, I agree with you wholeheartedly. At least this girl would have been like, you're not going to just freaking leave me here telling me order more coffee. Sit down. I have spent the night in a motel with you. I've got other questions. Also, like, I don't really know why you decided to tell me all this out in public out here rather than like, why didn't we have this conversation in the motel room, seemingly a much more private space?
And June could have done the handoff in the motel room.
Right.
She could have just wandered off, said, stay in the hotel room. Someone will be along in an hour.
Right. Which would have all seemed safer in a lot of ways, I think. Yeah. I mean, unless there's some sense of like, you know, safety in numbers, there's more people around you. Maybe there were 10 other Mayday people in that diner. Like that would have all grabbed a gun. If somebody were to approach her, that wasn't the right person. Like, not sure. Because maybe she would have been like a sitting duck in a motel room all alone. There's nobody else around in some way. I don't know. But the audience member, me, wanted June to tell her more and wanted Daisy to push for more. But we've done a lot of podcasts. We actually, as Pod Clubhouse, hit over 500 podcasts recently. We know that like you have to build some drama. And the idea is to make you a subscriber to Hulu, correct?
Right.
So you have to wait a week now to find out like who her parents are. Maybe we're probably going to switch perspectives. Maybe we go over to Aunt Lydia, or maybe we're going back to Agnes. Who knows? And you're going to dangle along for a couple more episodes before we're going to get back to that. All that information that we already just told you. It makes sense to me. To sort of wrap it all up, I would ask you, what do you feel like the main differences were between the girl that we saw in Toronto and all the flashbacks, and then the Daisy we meet in the pilot and how she was acting there, and then the Daisy of episode 3 of like sitting on that bus chastising the Guardian like, y'all messed up again? What is this, some sloppy shit show? I love that line. I was like, sloppy shit show? That is exactly something 17-year-old Caroline would have said. Only I didn't know words like shit show, but I would have thought that I would absolutely say something like that.
Yeah. Whatever she goes through between when June leaves her to when we meet her in the pilot does change her quite a bit. She's focused. It takes that hand lopping to kind of break her, which is pretty rough. It would break anybody that wasn't accustomed to that kind of thing. So she goes through something where she becomes a believer in whatever it is that she's there to do, whether it's for her own safety or some larger cause.
Wait, so you're thinking no, not really. You don't really think a believer. I mean, a believer in the Mayday cause or a believer in the, okay.
No,
okay.
Not a believer.
Because I was like, you don't mean like
sons of Jacob.
She's like into this Gilead in any way. Okay. I just want to clarify because some of our listeners could be like, Paul, what are you doing? Did you drink the honey, Paul? What are you doing over there?
I meant a believer in the Mayday cause, the Kill Gilead cause.
Okay.
I don't know what it is that they're going to show us that bridges that gap, but I believe it's something where she agrees and is in and very focused. Whereas before she was like smoking dope with Justin on the merry-go-round.
I can't believe you said
living life.
Smoking dope.
Should I have said a doobie?
I don't know. All of it makes me laugh at you. No, you're right. I mean, you're right. She found like a mission, and the whole world seems like it's on her shoulders. I am curious what the mission is. I am very curious if the mission is something to do with Agnes specifically, something to do with the Plum Girls as a group, something to do with Gilead in a much larger way. Like, how big can we make this? We all watched the little prequel crawl that went on the screen at the beginning of episode 1 that said like these women are going to change history. Like they're going to make history here. Like they're going to change it all. That makes it seem like it's a much bigger thing than just this bus of girls.
Well, we met June this episode, and we know that Agnes is Hannah. We hypothesized in the last episode that it wasn't just Lydia pairing up Daisy and Agnes. That's why Daisy was there, was to pair up with Agnes.
And I don't know if everybody got that, Paul. So like listeners, if that's news to you, like it seems very much like to these two watchers that was a very purposeful placement. It wasn't just like, hey, why Agnes? It was like, it has to be Agnes and there are reasons.
Yes.
So I cannot wait to find out more reasons and get to episode 4. I hope that all of you have enjoyed 1 through 3 if you watched it back to back. Take a breather. You get a whole week now until 4 comes out. But I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Even the stomach achy parts. I'm like, okay, this is how bad Gilead is. They have to keep showing us that stuff. But I'm very hopeful. It's still very hopeful. This is Caroline.
And this is Paul. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you found this podcast. Leave a review and a 5-star rating so other people will have an easier time finding the show. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening.
Pod Clubhouse.